Here's some two lines that I've been thinking about a lot lately. Like a lot of kids, we want our kids to live in between the lines of respect and fear, where they're not over here afraid of us, but they're not over there disrespecting us. Yeah. They're in between here. And it's like a lot of times we're like, man, I don't want my kids to be afraid. So we allow them to go into disrespect and like.
It narrows and narrows and narrows.
Yeah. And so it's like, oh, boundaries keep you respectful and healthy boundaries keep you from being afraid of me. You're not afraid, but you're not disrespectful either.
Yeah,
you're safe.
It's a powerful thing. The idea of creating self-aware, respectful kids, your analogy earlier of, I understand you're frustrated. I understand this is hard. The beauty of our differences is, just the other day we had a daughter that didn't do her schoolwork on time and the quarter was ending, and she's normally very responsible with managing herself, but I don't know what was going on. But I don't know, it was Christmas break, coming off of that, the retreat, all the fun things. She just didn't feel like doing it. Well, all of a sudden, her problem, she's trying to make our problem. She's in middle school. And her desire and need for help is significant. She does need help. And I want to help her. But the disrespect or the attitude in asking for help, I can acknowledge that she's frustrated, but I still can require that I'm treated differently. Because I don't. Just think about anyone that works in customer service. When you have to, this is your paid position to meet with somebody that is a not nice person, all you can think about is getting off the phone and away from this person because you do not want to help them. And the beauty of this is I don't have to help you with your problem. This is not my paid responsibility to do your social studies assignment. Thank you, Jesus. I already have done this. But hey, I know you're frustrated. And I want to help you, but I want to help somebody that's going to be kind.
Yeah.
So take a moment. Let me know when you're ready.
Yeah.
And sometimes she doesn't get there quite to the standard that I need to be able to actually engage. But Ben has a different standard than I do, and it's not that he just has more grace. That's the truth of it. Ben has more grace than I do, so he's able to go in because he's got a little bit more capacity than I do. And
good way to say it.
And so that's the beauty of when you are working as a team is I get to send Ben in okay, she's having a hard time coming down, and you have more grace here than I do. So can you help us?
Yeah.
And that's what I
love that
when we get to do that.
We had a situation as well around the same time you're describing, but it was with Lincoln, where we've had there was a sighting of a certain animal.
Oh, yes. We had a mountain lion.
Mountain lion. I was going to say bobcat. That was wrong.
No, a mountain lion come out.
That's
around the house.
To the farm.
Well, somewhere in the neighborhood.
Yes,
probably close
enough.
to the farm.
It's actually fairly close to our house.
Yeah, so we're just kind of just giving some helpful hints to the kids and tools, and just be aware when you go to the farm and stay together, whatever. But we have a little puppy too. And this little puppy loves to be outside, and then inside, then outside, then inside.
She's kind of clueless to things.
And so Lincoln heard about this mountain lion. He's like, do not let the puppy outside after dark because something bad's going to happen. So he's been managing that. And, well, I was in the backyard, and
it was dark.
It was dark. So the girls let the dog out. Now, my son doesn't do this. I heard him from a ways away wailing in like agony.
I was in bed, and I thought they were fighting downstairs. What is going
on? No.
He's just super
because he's like, the dog's gone. Yeah. That's it. She's been eaten by a mountain lion. He's already there.
Yeah.
And he's just at the top of his game in the worst way. And so the girls are out there. The girls start giggling because they're just not sure what to do with what's happening. So I kind of make it down there and, okay, girls, stop laughing for a second. I help them understand what's happening and calm them down. And I was helping them gain some empathy because part of the story that listeners might be missing is we had a dog pass away about 6 months ago.
Right.
So Lincoln's just got this. He's 10 years old. He's still processing. Yeah. It's a really hard thing to process for a 10-year-old. So he's really scared. But I think the piece that was just listening to your fear and respect thing is I told Lincoln, buddy, I need you to figure out what you're going to do with your fear. Mm-hmm. Girls, I need you to figure out how to find empathy and help your brother. Because I think even the regulation thing in siblings is important.
Yeah.
That we learn to help each other. It's not just mom and dad's job. as we get some tools, we get to give them away and keep each other accountable. That you don't get to treat me like that. You don't get to just go off because you felt like it. That the respect actually happens in a sibling relationship too. So it's kind of a dramatic story. The puppy's fine. Lincoln's fine.
Yeah.
Girls
I
are
met
fine.
the puppy.
And the reality is that, there could be 3 mountain lions in a 10-mile radius and whatever.
I think typically a mountain lion has a over 100-mile
well,
radius just to themselves.
I
so.
learned this, and then the guy, the trapper that called me, he said,
Brittney did some pretty serious.
I didn't
research.
They called me because I was reporting it. So I learned that they could be a lot
Closer.
More.
Okay.
Because
good to know.
At least in our area, because they're fighting for space. Unrelated to parenting, but there's random information about mountain lions for you. Didn't know you're going to be on a National Geographic show.
Last time I was here last month, we were talking about boundaries, and we were talking about fun or room, just setting boundaries and stuff like that. But this is kind of like, I'm giving myself some space, so I make sure that I'm fun as well, which that's a good boundary for parents to have as well, is to recognize when you're not doing good, I need a little bit of space and come back so I don't do something dumb.
That's one of the things Brittany's taught me well. You're pretty good at that one.
Telling you need a timeout?
Well, that. Go somewhere else.
Telling Ben you need a timeout?
Me watching her do it to herself.
Yeah.
She'll give herself a timeout. Like, I'm about to be no fun.
I'm going to
I'll
go
be
sit
back.
in the no fun chair right now.
I think we're going to talk about discipleship. And so much for me, when I look at Rafiki's just, getting his Holy Spirit time on, because if you don't do a good job of taking care of yourself, if you don't do a good job of figuring out what you need, or give yourself space, or recenter, like, okay, Jesus, I need you to be present with me because we're going to be down a kid at the end of the day if we don't. I feel like if you don't do that, you're not going to be able to lead them well. Yeah. You're going to lead them with all the things that you're trying so hard to not bring into your family culture. And so that whole parenting with the Holy Spirit, which I'm a huge advocate for. So many people don't do it. I don't know why.
I know.
All the time. I feel the time.
Why would we not pull on the greatest parent of all time who's ever present in our time of need to help us parent like he parents us?
Yes.
And we ignore him and try to do it ourselves.
Yep.
Rather than go, I need space. I'm going to go connect with the Lord and come back. And also what that demonstrates to them. I think a lot of discipleship is not just what we lecture our kids about what we get them to remember or memorize or quote back to us. It's how we live.
Absolutely.
It's how we go, hey guys, I don't know what to do. This is tough.
Tell your kids you don't know what to do sometimes?
Of course. I thought
we were supposed to know
Not
everything.
all the time. I've done it maybe twice. I've said I don't. No, just
There's this one time.
Yeah,
we
there
tell
was
the
one
lady all the
time I
time,
didn't know.
we've never parented a 17-year-old
Yeah.
before.
Well,
We
it
don't
was
know what we're
10,
doing.
Yeah.
11, 12.
It's been
13.
every year.
Yeah.
But being honest about it and going, I need to go pray.
Let's just in this topic we're talking about boundaries. The common thing we often bring up right here with people is there's a difference between boundaries and punishment.
Yes.
Can you give a quick description of that? And we'll talk about it for a minute.
Yeah, I mean, a boundary is I've got hope for you to manage yourself and re-enter the environment, and you are. It's really this empowerment of I want you to be empowered how you're going to manage yourself. Punishment is I'm going to control you or manage you for you, or and then it's my way or the highway type of analogy is how in parenting, you will do what I say, because if not, you will be punished, which typically looks like disrespect, lecture, anger, or withholding. And there's some not understanding the consequences that I think people think that it's the same thing, but I'm trying to empower you to manage yourself, or that I overstep and I do it. And I have an enforced consequence that you didn't actually feel powerful in.
Yep.
So that's. I mean, we like to word things. I do it and then you do it. So your turn.
Well, as tag, As you're talking, I'm actually remembering a time with Adeline, a middle one, who's probably the one that requires the least amount of boundaries, meaning she's not going to challenge much.
Yeah, she's just, her boundaries are going to be coming in different ways.
Yes.
I think her boundary, her 2-year-old season is coming later.
It's true.
As she's growing in wanting freedom.
Exactly.
The lady just wanted to fight in her freedom early on.
She did it early on.
Yeah, she did it early on.
But I remember this moment, it's probably in the last 3 years, and I haven't had many of these moments with Adeline, but I was getting frustrated. I was going to do something. It was a while ago now. I forget exactly what the activity was, but I needed to essentially obey. Do what I'm asking you to do. Mm-hmm. This needs to happen now. And she's just either not doing it. She's just, her attitude is, no, it's not going to happen. And I felt this thing rising, and I didn't catch it and set a clear boundary. Mm-hmm. So I actually moved into punishment. And I hate these moments, right? As parents, we're like, I didn't enjoy this. But I snapped at her. I said, hey, do what I said, which doesn't happen to me very often.
I was to say, wow.
No.
I don't remember this. I wish I did. Because we all know mine.
Well, that's why we're here, is to talk about our moments, right? But I kind of snapped at her, and you could watch her demeanor change. Mm-hmm. And I realized I didn't set a clear boundary. I didn't actually give you an opportunity to join me in feeling powerful too. Mm-hmm. I took over, and the next word out of my mouth was, honey, I'm so sorry. That was not helpful. That was not kind. That's not my goal.
Yeah.
And I think that's the piece to remember. We talk about this all the time, but cleaning up your mess is so important. And then get back to, there's still boundaries here, because this is what protects freedom. Mm-hmm. I think, I can't remember where I heard it, but years ago, there's this analogy of, if there's a playground and you put the fence really far away from the playground, those kids are going to walk all the way up to the fence and fill the entire area. They're going to get all the way to the boundary.
Yeah.
If you have the same playground with no fence, those kids will actually stay. It was actually a study they did. Mm-hmm. They will stay right by the playground and not explore the area because they're scared. And there's just too many opportunities to get hurt or confusion when there's no boundaries. Mm. So it's actually the opposite of freedom is taking place. I don't feel free in this place because there's not a clear boundary. Mm-hmm. There's not a structure for me.
You know, I think about all of the different personalities for our kids that we have. You know, D's, I's, S's, C's. We do DISC. A lot of parents would say, well, if there was no fence, my kid would just take off and explore all the kingdom. Sure, maybe they're the surveyors. They're the ones that are going to put the boundary in place. But until they hit a boundary, they're going to keep moving. You know, and I think us parents get overwhelmed and frustrated by, I didn't put a boundary in, and now I'm trying to find them to put the boundary up. Well, this is where we've got to be proactive and, okay, here's the clearest expectations that I have for you in this exchange. What happens if you violate that? Here's the consequence. It's not a, you violated and this is what happens to you. It's a, hey, I'm putting this up. I want you to feel empowered. But if you cross this, I'm going to feel scared. And if I feel scared, this is what might happen. Yeah. So it's up to you. But if you just, is like an electric fence, if you didn't tell them that was there and they crossed it and they're instantly punished for it, that's not what we want. We want really clear expectations and communicating with our kids so that they don't feel surprised by this exchange. Yeah. And I think that's the punishment piece that starts to happen is like, oh, I'm being choked out and I don't even know what's going on. Yeah.
And the boundary really is to help protect and continue healthy relationship. Mm-hmm. It's there to protect something we value. Punishment is just me ruling the house, mm-hmm. not considering you. Yeah. It's because I'm letting some other emotion take over.
I'm in charge of the kingdom and you're just my subjects.
Yeah.
You're not part of the royal family that gets to help rule this kingdom too.
You know, I just thought of this. We didn't have this written down or planned out. Have you seen the movie Mitchells versus the Machines? No. The robots, yes. The AI come in and start taking over. And it's this it's this family with issues. Like, they're not perfect. They're not good. And then there's the other family that's the neighbors that are always like, doing yoga, perfectly manicured, taking their Instagram photos, and you see them throughout the movie, and it's like, oh, these guys are so perfect. Instagram, everything's always good, everything's always right. And then you have this other family that ends up saving the world from the robots, who is not perfect. The imperfect family saves the world.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's about embracing, I think, that what am I supposed to be doing? Who am I supposed to be? And one of the biggest things that I think I talk about, even Ben and I's story and our struggle in marriage and trying to figure out how are we a team and how do we do this well, and then laying out kind of who do we want our kids to be?
Yeah.
You know, there's so much tension on everybody else and what we think our kids should look like, or what they should be involved in or not, or all these different things, and then really trying to know what your family was created to do and be and build. I think that's all part of the book, and so it's fun.
I love it. I think some of the language I've been using lately is I feel like God has a general vision for every Christian home that is found in the fruit of the Spirit. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, self-control, which is kind of like everything we talk about. Like, hey, we're growing self-control in our kids. We're not controlling our kids. We're growing self-control in them. We're using tools to help us stay patient and help us stay kind, even when all hell is breaking loose, right? Like that's that general thing. And then I think every family also has a very specific calling. Like, you know, even with our families, you guys have animals, you guys have your own eggs, your own chickens, your own, all that. We do too. Other families, it's like, oh, your specific calling, who you specifically are to your kids, to the world around you. Oh, it's in the city. Oh, it's in a condo versus like out in the country.
Well, we have really good friends that they have an inner city ministry, and they are just massively impacting Sacramento. We've had them on the Kylo show before, the Dipmores. If you didn't watch that episode, you should go listen to it. It's amazing. But they chose to raise their kids in the city to really equip and train them on how to love the broken and how to not let the broken be part of your normal just because you're around it. How to lead in it. And I mean, they are in the worst area of Sacramento. That's where their ministry is. That's where they've lived. They actually turned their first house of raising their kids into like a housing.
For mothers and kids. And,
So they've said, you know,
Like
they're still in the area, but that's where they were. They have crazy stories of people showing up in the middle of the night, knocking on their door. But there's that family that's called to that. You know, then I have our other family way into sports. You know, their kids are going to go to college for sports, and that's what they've dedicated their life to. And I love it because I think about that kid is going to go and change the locker room dynamic because that's what they're called to. And it makes a massive difference.
And you go into a bunch of this in this book too. I mean, I've read it a couple of times now with you, as you've poured your life out into it.
It's really our lives.
That's true. You've poured our lives into it. But I think the piece right here I keep thinking about, just listening to you guys talk, is I think when we're working so hard and comparing ourselves at how we think we should be and watching someone else like that movie you just described, you know, well, they're perfect and we're less like them. We're actually missing out on being fully engaged in the call God has on our family's life and who we are and expressing that. Because I'm so concerned about doing it wrong. And I'm so concerned about messing it up that I'm missing kind of the vision and the sight of seeing this family and the vision God has for us through His perspective. And so I think it's just this beautiful opportunity and really this challenge that Brittney's laying out for us through our story of you know, will you fight for your family from this perspective, not from the old way?
I think like one thing we've talked a lot about on here and interacted with a lot of people about is not parenting out of fear. And that whole comparison thing of like, am I as good as them? What am I? It's all fear. It's all parenting from fear. And this is like taking the pressure off. Like, hey, taking the pressure off from being like, am I as good as them? Comparing myself to them. How How am I doing? Like, yeah, just removing that fear that perfection tries to motivate us with.